Sugar Spun Run, we'll be making angel food cupcakes. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I have another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe for you. This is a highly requested variation of my angel food cake. Angel food cupcakes are notoriously a little bit trickier to make than their cake counterpart because they tend to just shrink up on themselves after they finish baking. So some shrinking is to be expected just because of the nature of the cupcake, but I have found a way to minimize that as much as possible, and I'm excited to share this recipe with you today. So let's go ahead and get started by preheating our oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. You want to make sure your oven rack is in the center because that's the rack we'll be using to bake these cupcakes. And grab yourself a small or medium-sized, mixing bowl. To this, we are going to start by adding 2/3 cup of powdered sugar, confectioner's sugar, you may also know it by, or 10x sugar. We'll also add a 1/2 cup of cake flour. Now, if you don't have cake flour, I will include notes on how to substitute all-purpose flour. Instead, I'll put that in the printable recipe. We are also going to be adding a tablespoon of cornstarch. Now, powdered sugar already has some cornstarch in it, but we are adding more because that's going to help make these cupcakes more stable. And these are by nature super light and airy and super springy and just very delicate. So whatever I could do to add some stability without taking away from the flavor and natural texture of the cupcake, I was gonna do it. That's why we have our cornstarch. All right, let's whisk everything together. If there are any lumps in your powdered sugar, you want to get those broken up. You could also sift these ingredients together if you prefer. And that little squeaky noise the whisk makes against the cornstarch in the glass, that's just too much for me. All right, we'll set that aside and we're going to grab a large mixing bowl. It is important that this be completely clean, dry, and grease-free, and I recommend using glass. You could also use metal, but stay away from plastic or rubber at this point. And this is, of course, because we are going to be making a meringue using egg whites, and egg whites are notoriously finicky. They don't do well with grease. They also don't do well with humidity, and it is really raining outside right now, so we're gonna see how this goes. Now, I need 3/4 cup of egg whites. I recommend using freshly cracked, not the pasteurized kind sold in cartons, because you won't always have great results using those. You might, but the risk just isn't worth it to me. Now, I have about a 1/2 cup here, so I need to add a couple more egg whites. These are just saved from a recipe I made earlier today. So the way I like to separate the egg whites from the egg yolks is just to crack that egg and pass that yolk back and forth until the white drops out. And you do want to take care you don't get any bit of yolk in there. And that is why I always do this in a separate dish, because if I were to crack this here and get some yolk in with those whites, I would have to toss all of them. If I crack the egg separately, we are only risking 1 egg white. 3/4 cup, that actually was perfect. So typically this is 5 or 6 eggs for me to get to the amount of egg whites that I need. All right, we'll add these to our clean, dry, grease-free mixing bowl. Then we are going to add 3/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. Cream of tartar, I've talked about this before. I like to think of it as like training wheels for my meringue. It's just going to help ensure we get a nice, stable meringue, which is super important for these cupcakes. We're also going to add our flavoring. Now today I'm going to be using 3/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I also like to add a little bit of almond extract because I think that really just adds such a nice bright flavor to these light and airy angel food cupcakes. So this is just an 1/8 teaspoon, which is a tiny bit, but a little bit of almond extract goes a long way. We'll also add some salt. I use an 1/8 teaspoon of salt. This is just table salt. Smack that all in there. And now this next step you could do in a stand mixer if you prefer. I would use a whisk attachment if you're doing so, but I personally am going to just be using my electric hand mixer. You don't want to do this step by hand unless you want a super, super intense arm workout. I really don't recommend whipping egg whites to stiff peaks by hand. I'm sure someone out there has done it. I think it's just too much work. So grab yourself some kind of machine and we're going to start whipping these egg whites on low speed. And once everything is combined, we're going to gradually turn the mixer speed up to high and we're going to start adding some granulated sugar. I have 1/2 cup of granulated sugar here, and I am just going to start by adding a single tablespoon while I'm mixing everything. And then I'm going to stir for about 20 seconds before I add the next tablespoon of sugar. And I will just continue to do this until all of the sugar has been added. Now, once you've added all your sugar, your mixture should be starting to look pretty thick, opaque. You should be starting to approach stiff peaks. If not, just keep on mixing until you do have stiff peaks. Now, what that means is the mixture will have greatly increased in volume. It'll be white, it'll be opaque, and when you lift the beater straight out of the mixture, the peak that forms should hold straight up. This one's not quite there yet, so I'm going to keep on mixing a bit longer. Okay, you don't want to go too far though, because if you overbeat them, that is just as bad as underbeating them. But let's see. So my peaks that are forming, super stiff. Can you see that? Not folding in on itself, holding straight. Let me hold it over here so you can see. And now we're going to bring back our cake flour powdered sugar mixture from earlier, and we're just gonna add it right into the bowl. You can add everything all at once. Now grab yourself a spatula, and we are going to gently fold everything together until our egg whites and our flour sugar mixture are well combined. Now do take care with this step. Don't use your electric mixer here. We just want to move our spatula in a gentle folding motion. So you can see I'm scraping the sides or scraping the bottom of the bowl and just folding it over. We do not want to deflate our egg whites because they are going to give our cupcakes much of their stability. We're not smushing the batter like we did with my macarons. We're just using a gentle hand and turning it over itself over and over again. The mixture is going to be super thick and sticky when we're done. Don't want any lumps in here, so just watch for that as you're mixing. No clumps of flour hiding in here. Just taking a little peek, trying not to overdo it. But I think we're about ready to bake this stuff. My mom hates it when I say the word stuff. Couldn't you use a better word? It's batter. All right, now grab yourself a 12-count cupcake tin. Line it with paper liners. You definitely want to do this because they can be really difficult to get out of the pan if you don't. We are going to evenly divide this batter into our 12-count cupcake tin. The best way to do this is with an ice cream scoop. Makes the job a little bit neater. It can still be a messy job. And these are going to be some pretty full cupcake liners. I'll show you, you'll see. To drop that neatly in there. Most of the time when you're making one of my cupcake recipes, I'm really particular, like don't overfill your cupcake liner. Don't go more than 2/3 of the way full. That does not apply to this recipe. We're going to fill them up all the way. We're going to fill them up more than all the way. All right, now before we add the rest, grab yourself just like a spoon or a knife, and we're going to gently press this batter into the cupcake tin, just because a lot of times there's like a pocket of empty space in there, which will cause the cupcake to sink quite a bit when it's baking. And we want to make room for more batter. Again, don't be really aggressive with this. We're just gently coaxing that batter into the cupcake tin. And as you can see, I'm like sort of holding down the liner with my fingers while I'm doing this. And that's because if I don't, this is a very sticky batter. It's going to make a mess. Now I'll continue adding the rest of the batter. And you do want to divide this evenly. That way your cupcakes all bake evenly and they're done baking at the same time. And I'm actually going to switch over to using spoons just because the ice cream scoop was good for the initial, but now I need a little bit more control and precision. You can see when I used the ice cream scoop, that was a little bit too much. Too aggressive. We're not aggressive with this recipe. We're delicate, gentle. Now these cupcakes are pretty much going to bake up looking however you dolloped them into the tin. So it may be beneficial to you to smooth them a little bit. That way they look like cupcakes instead of just like crazy wild meringue when they're finished baking. All right, these are going to go on the center rack of your 375-degree Fahrenheit preheated oven, where they're going to need to bake for about 16 minutes. Keep an eye on them. The tops will become a nice light golden brown color, and any cracks in the cupcakes should appear dry before they're finished baking. Now, when the cupcakes are finished baking, we're not going to remove them from the oven. Instead, we're just going to turn off the oven, we'll crack the door several inches, and we're going to let them sit in there for about 15 to 20 minutes to cool down some slowly before we remove them from the oven. This is because if we just pull them out of the oven, your kitchen is going to be a lot colder than that oven was, and it's going to cause them to just shrink up really fast. By leaving them in the oven, they cool more slowly, and they're going to hold their shape a bit better. All right, now after they come out of the oven, they are still going to be a little bit warm, so let them cool completely in the cupcake tin. Once they've cooled completely, we can remove them, and we're going to want to do this gently, again, because these are delicate cupcakes. So I like to just take a knife, and if they have stuck to the side of the pan anywhere, no big deal, just gently loosen them, and they should come out really nicely. Now the cupcakes will have shrunk a little bit. You know, they were super big in the oven and they will come in a little bit, but they should be a very respectable size and they're not shrunken in on themselves, which was very important to me when I was developing this recipe. I'm just going to move them to a cooling rack where I will decorate them. Now you could enjoy these as is, there's nothing wrong with that, but every cupcake needs a frosting, and the perfect frosting for this recipe is whipped cream, maybe topped with a strawberry if you have any of those. So I made a batch of my whipped cream, not my whipped cream frosting, just my classic whipped cream. Super easy, it's 3 ingredients, just takes a couple minutes. I'll link to that in the recipe, and that's how I'll be topping these today. This is my homemade whipped cream. I have it in a piping bag with my Attico 846 tip, one of my favorite tips, just in case you were curious. And I do want to note, I do not add the whipped cream frosting until I'm ready to serve the cupcakes. Now, I'm not putting these out for a party or anything like that, so I'm only going to frost a couple of them that I'll be eating. And that is how easy it is to make these super cute angel food cupcakes. Do leave them in their wrappers. These wrappers are providing some stability, and when you take it out, if you let them sit for a while, you'll notice they'll continue to shrink. That is the nature of the cupcake. It's not a problem, just means you have to eat it after you take it out of the wrapper. I hope you guys enjoyed today's recipe, and if you try this one, please leave me a comment, let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is the best kind of cake in the world, but eating it is gonna be a little awkward. It's so good, but I'm not taking another bite like that on camera. I love these. Ah, no. That was close. Okay, calm down.